What?
My big announcement.
That's the beginning.
I'm totally impressed with all of you, to be honest. I mean, you've done way better than I expected. And I am so impressed with you. You have proven that you can take a scene that wasn't yours and a story that wasn't already in your head and turn it into yours. None of these stories are similar. None of them. And none of them are actually like what really happened. I will tell you what really happened to Shelley when we come back next time. But for this time, you have permission. Over Christmas, I want you to work on these stories because they're fascinating, but not actually these stories necessarily. You have permission to either continue on this story that you're working on, or you may write your own. You can totally leave Shelley and have a nice time wherever you go, and you can write your own story about a unicorn that went to New York City and, I don't know, climbed Statue of Liberty and learning to fly. I don't know, whatever your story's going to be about. If you want to write about a gymnast, if you want to write about yourself, if you want to write about the time that somebody moved into your town, if you wanted to write about the time you got to go visit the president, even if it's not really true, whatever. It's your story at this point. You can own this one, decide this is the one I want to keep writing, or you can start over and write your own. So from here on out, your story, not my story, not Shelley's story. This is yours now. Okay? Everybody got that? Did you get that, Anna? You can start over if you want.
Oh, is she sick?
I think they're gone somewhere. I don't know. She's just not here.
What's here? Yeah. So
Okay. We have a lot to cover today, as you can see.
Yep.
From my super awesome. They're not mine. I got them from somebody else, but they were so cute. I just had to get them. Okay, so if you are starting your own story now, or if you are continuing with this one, I'm going to try and give you a whole chunk of information just in case you get really inspired and want to write like 50 pages. I'm giving you some building blocks that next semester we're going to cover much more in depth, but I'm just going to try an overview. We need to talk about plot. The overview for an entire story is very important. But as I'm working on that, Opie, Daniel, come, please. Take that bag out.
You are called.
Wait till you are called.
What time?
When you are working on a plot, when you are working on the tiniest story, when you're working on the longest story, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're writing, even if you're writing an email or an advertisement for something, description is very important. Because how you describe something tells someone, well, just about everything they need to know. For example, if you were writing a book or a story that was based in this class, about something dramatic that happened to you in this class or whatever, and you said, my teacher, she was really weird. Sometimes she wore a mask when she taught class. Now close your eyes for like 5 seconds. Okay. And open them. How many of you, this is what you saw in your head when I said that? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you saw. Okay, but the thing you really need to remember, your reader reads what you put on the paper, not what's in your head. They can't see with your eyeballs. They can't hear what you're hearing. They can't smell what you're smelling unless you tell them. So, if some reader was reading, your teacher was weird and sometimes she wore a mask to class, they might see, Daniel? Daniel. They might see this. You gotta come over so Anna can see you. Because maybe they were just painting the wall, maybe they've been in a chemical war, maybe I don't really know what their deal is, but maybe they're like, your teacher wears that to class, she really is weird, oh my goodness, go out and ask Kobe to come in. Maybe when you say my teacher wears a mask, she sees this. I like that. Come on over so Anna can see you. Maybe their teacher is an artist, or she works at a play. She sees at a play, or maybe she's like super dramatic and she just thinks it's fun because she's got a thing for feathers. Thank you. You may go. Are you gonna wear it in class? All right, Daniel, you come back in. Thank you. Hi guys.
Finally, I'm allowed to come back.
So description is what matters, because if you just say she wears a mask, they're going to think of whatever their definition of a mask is, or whatever their own experience is. If you say, I went on a trip to Uganda. Like, that's so cool because I lived in Uganda, I had an experience in Uganda, you know, I got to raft the Nile River, all this great stuff. Well, maybe you went to Uganda to help with the people in a war. Maybe you went to help with AIDS orphans. Maybe you went and you had a horrible experience and you got sick and you threw up for like a week and a half. And I'm like, oh, that's so great, you know, and you're like, what? So description is important. So what you would say something like, what's one word that you could say that would make people think this instead of that?
Small.
What kind of mask is this?
Breathing.
A face mask, a breathing mask, a medical mask. You could say, my teacher has a fixation for the arts. My teacher works with drywall dust. My teacher has asthma. Sometimes she wears a medical mask. Boom, they're gonna think of this or something close to it. Unless...
I imagine the big thing that he was wearing. That's what
Really? See? So what people imagine is what's already in their head usually. You have to hand them something else and you have to describe it to help them understand. If you're writing a book in Arizona, please describe it because I've never been there and I don't know. My brain says flat desert land with cactus. Cacti, whatever you're going to say.
That's what I imagine also.
Okay, so if you go to Arizona and you're living in a city, my whole story is going to be messed up because my brain is out in the middle of nowhere with a cactus, you know. So description's important. But beyond description, you can describe all day long, but what's happening in your story? So that's where your paper comes in. You need a plot. Now, fortunately, they have taken some of the most successful stories and they have figured out what is it that makes them so successful. What is the universal appeal of a good story? It starts, it has a middle, it has an ending, but what's going on? So you have this delightful little thing. Take a look at it. You start in a comfort zone, number 1. So your story begins with your person in their normal life, usually. Things are just going along, you know, la-di-da-da. And then something happens. Ka-wham, bang. Now, in our Shelley story, what happened was the dad showed up and he wanted to take her to live with him for a while. So you're taking her out of her zone. You're putting her in another place where everything's different. Now, it can be something even simpler. You're just sitting in class one day and all of a sudden you start feeling dizzy. What's going on? You go to the doctor and find out you've got some disease nobody's ever heard of, and now you're going to have to go to New York to get testing and blah, 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 blah. Your life just changed. It could be... It could be something simple, it could be something big, but what it mostly is a conflict of interest. Remember how we talked about conflict? It is a conflict. It is something that you didn't want in your life, or maybe you did want it, but then it's big and you got to deal with it. How you're going to adjust. So, they want something. Remember we talked about that. What do they want? And what's stopping them from getting what they want? That's the conflict. So it may be that they're trying something. They're going to be the best basketball player in the whole entire world, but they're 5'2". Okay, maybe it's that the conflict is against what they want.
Allen Iverson.
They can overcome, but it would be a difficult conflict to overcome. Okay, maybe they just didn't want anything to change, and then World War II happened. Bam. So they enter an unfamiliar situation. They adapt to it. Okay, Luke Skywalker, he starts learning how to use it. Woo, the little flashlight thing. Not really, but, you know. And it's like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I'm adapting. This is great. You go to a new city. You make your first friend. Okay, maybe we can handle this. Okay? Sometimes they get what they want. I'm going to fight in this battle and I'm going to win. You fight in the battle and you win. Oh, like cars. He gets to be the winner, but in the process he realizes he lost all his friends. A lot of times the kid wants to be popular, but to be popular, they have to reject the people they really care about. The non-popular kids that were their friends, their new snobby friends aren't going to let them be friends with all these guys. So they have to reject all them to be, and they get what they want, and then they realize, I'm a jerk. Or they realize, I didn't really want this. If you're going to win, you have to become corrupt, and you have to, you know, pay the judges on the side or something, and you want to win so bad that you give in, and then you realize, well, I didn't want this. Or maybe they get everything they want, and then it's like, what now? Tangled. If you've ever seen that movie, she says, you know, I've waited my whole life for this moment. What if it's not everything that I want it to be? And he says, oh, it will be. She's like, what if it is? Then what? Anybody who's ever gone for a gold medal. In Chariots of Fire, the guy finally wins the gold, and this is what he has lived for, forever. And he finally wins it, and then he's just kind of like, who am I? What do I do now? What is my life about? And he realizes his whole life was about this. Now he's got to figure out what is his whole life about again. And he figures out maybe what he wanted wasn't really what he wanted something else. So, that's what they're learning, growing, character development. It's when all this stuff happens. So they come back to sometimes they pay a heavy price. Narnia, the second one, they go and fight. Now, the first one, they fought, they attained. It was like, yes, and now they're the kings and queens. They go back the second time, and they got a little bit of a big head. We know how to do this. And they go in, and they lose the battle. And there are casualties, and they realize there are major consequences to what I'm doing. It's not just about, I'm so awesome, let me fight the battle. They pay a heavy price. They have to learn from this and overcome it. So then at the third battle, they come through, and they're fighting the right way, the right reasons, with the right people. They understand that they need each other. They're not, just themselves all in charge. And they change, and they grow. And that might be the end of your story, or you might return to the familiar situation, and now you have to adapt to the fact that the situation is the same and you're not. At the end of The Lord of the Rings, when Frodo and all his little friends come back to the Shire and they think, all we ever wanted was to get back home. And they get back home, and home is the same, but they're different. And now they don't connect with people as much as they like. With my Stolen series, she goes on this trip, she learns about missions, she learns about trafficking, she completely changes. And then she goes home, and home is the same. And it's like, what do I do now with the fact that I'm different? And that's kind of a hard thing. And so your plot is going to encounter a lot of these things. This is the story arc of the way it goes around. And at the end, how do you want the reader to feel? And you adapt your story based on how you want them to feel. Okay, so to make this fantastic story, you need characters. Dun, dun, dun. And I found these, and they were so cute that I just had to bring them because they explain things very, very well. This is what we're going to cover a lot next semester, but I just want you to know them, so if you start writing your story, you know to put things in. There are very rarely, really good stories where there's just like, here's the main character. Here's all the things they do. You put in other people that affect them, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, because that's the way real life is, right? I mean, none of you go through your whole day without interacting with anybody, typically. Unless you're hiding out reading a book. It's a really good book.
Yeah.
So, in most of our stories, we've got these archetypes. In a lot of the really great stories, from now on, when you watch a really good movie or when you read a really good book, I want these things to start coming to your mind. You're like, oh, there's this conflict of interest. If you watch Star Wars, it's like, he's just living his normal life, and then, whammo, this thing happens. And he's like, I don't want to go fight the universe. I just wanted to stay home and milk my little cow or something. I don't know. And he is thrust into this. He's the hero. He's a reluctant hero. Now, usually he's born into unusual circumstances. He's sort of like, these are based on your major mythical stories. So, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, often fantasy. So here's this, he's really the king and he doesn't know he's the king, and so he's just growing up normal. Richard Chamberlain did a movie, The Man in the Iron Mask. Whoa, that was good. So he looks exactly like the king, and the king is a horrible person, and they're going to abduct the king, and they're going to switch him in. Or the Prisoner of Zinda, he gets thrust into the prince's thing, or the king's thing, because somebody kidnapped the king, and they don't want them to know, because it'll make everything fall apart. And so you thrust him in, and he has to pretend to be this guy, and he falls in love with the guy that the other guy's going to marry, and what's going to happen, and it's amazing. Those are great. So you've got this person that's got this history. He's important. Maybe he doesn't even know it. And he has to leave where he is, go someplace else. He gets a call of adventure. La, 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 la. Usually he gets help from supernatural help, or he gets a special weapon, like his lightsaber, or he gets something that helps him along the way. Narnia, they did that. They gave each one of them a special weapon. If you are not writing fantasy, it's often you have a character trait that is going to help you overcome if you learn to use it. So that's your lightsaber, is the fact that you are stronger than you know you are. And you can go beyond what you think you can do. And so that's your lightsaber. So think of it as your lightsaber. It's your thing. It's your weapon if you learn to use it. If not, it's going to hurt someone. Think, look at my lightsaber. Oh, it's dead, Sorry. Okay, he has to prove himself. So he gets his lightsaber. Well, now you need to go fight something to see if you can use this thing instead of just waving it around. And that's very important, because if you think about it, what happens if you give a kid a fake sword? And they think, I can do this just like in the movies. Well, do they do it just like in the movies? No. You hear crash, bang, because they're running all over the room waving this thing, and there goes the lamp, and there goes, your mother's favorite heirloom, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Let's do some training. And so a lot of times he needs to get training by someone who knows more than he does, i.e. the mentor. He is. So you've got your older, wiser, not necessarily taller, mentor, who basically is anybody who knows more than you do. Sometimes it's just a friend who can tell it like it is and say, you know what, if you go be friends with these people, you're going to turn into a jerk. And usually, sometimes they're like, no, I can do it. And then it all happens, and they're like, guess what? I turned into a jerk. You were right. Let's go back to, I would like to learn from you now. So they have to humble themselves and recognize, I've got a lot to learn, la, la, la. So here's your mentor. You know what a mentor is. There you go. Not always green, but usually you can tell who he is because he's giving instructions. Loyal companions. That's your faithful sidekick. That's your one who is always on your side, who's always cheering you on, usually the one who does tell you when you're being a jerk somewhere along the line, because you know you can trust them. They're not always robots, and they're not always really hairy. But often they are funny. A lot of times in your story, your sidekick is the one that says the sarcastic things or the funny things and kind of lightens it down or helps you figure out what to do when you're totally confused, or at least gives you somebody to go, I don't know what to do. And they're like, okay. Your anti-hero is not always in your story, but sometimes is. That's like in between the hero and the bad guy. You got to have a bad guy. The bad guy's not always a guy. Well, sometimes it's a girl, but it's not always a person. Sometimes it's a situation. Maybe the bad guy's cancer. Maybe the bad guy is a disability that you have, or even a character flaw that you have. Like, say, for example, my dad was dishonest, and so I'm dishonest. And so I'm always going to be dishonest, and I can't trust myself. Come on in. And so what are you going to, that's your villain. Welcome, glad you're here. That's your villain, that's your thing to overcome. Okay? It might not even be necessarily a villain in the sense of someone who's bad. For example, if you want to win the gold medal, you're doing everything in the world to win the gold medal, what about your biggest competition? What if you're Simone Biles and you're going to win the gold medal, and the main character is poor little Morgan Hurd, who was the world champion last year until Simone Biles came in and she's better than like everybody on the planet. And there she is. What's she going to do? And if you can't overcome the situation, what do? Do you grow as a character, as a person? Do you find something else? Do you decide that overcoming isn't necessarily the gold medal? Overcoming may be doing the performance of your life, whatever that means. Interesting. Sports, I think that's one of the reasons people like sports so much, because all of these things are happening in small segments. On a football team, you've got your hero, whichever side you're rooting for. You've got the villain, whichever side everybody else is rooting for. You've got your loyal friends, all your other friends who are painted their faces and have weird hats, you know, and whatever. You're all together and you've got the same purpose. And somebody gets the ball and he's your hero, right? He's your quarterback. Does he have friends who are helping him out? You're like, nobody's helping him out. Where are the loyal friends? You know? And if nobody's there to catch the ball, then he's all alone, and what's he going to do? And now there's adverse circumstances, and the bad guys are coming at him, and is he going to go overcome? And then somebody does something wrong, kicks him in the face, and the whole world stops. Because all of a sudden, another story has just begun.
Why was somebody kicking me?
That's a good question. But we're not going to answer that right now. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe there was a deep-seated resentment because they used to go to college together, and this guy won and he didn't win, and so there's this whole 20 years of bitterness, and so he just used this opportunity when they were all attacking each other to kick him in the face. Or maybe he didn't mean to kick him in the face, but he accidentally kicked the face, and all that stuff is right there, so all the newscasters were like, whoa, he kicked him in the face on purpose, but he really didn't. What is he going to do as a person? Not just in this situation overcoming, but in himself. Is he going to overcome himself and be a man? Or is he going to kick the guy back? I don't know. You're writing the story. Okay, along with this, you have the evil minions. Sometimes they're small and yellow. Sometimes they're large and wear white uniforms. Sometimes you can't tell who they are at the first part of the story. But they belong to the bad guy, and they basically, they're very often stupid and do whatever he wants. So basically, you're not spending time in the story worrying about what's going on in their heads. There isn't anything, because the only reason they're there is to give the villain more power. So you can also do this in a way of giving the villain special powers that nobody else has. So that's kind of like his minions. It's all the things that he has to work with. So maybe your enemy is the guy across the thing in sports, but you know that he's got spikes on his shoes, and the coach doesn't know it. But if he steps on your foot, you're going to go to the hospital, and you know it. So those are his little minions, little things on his feet.
Well, they always have cleats.
Maybe, well, that's true. That is the definition of cleats, isn't it? They're all minions, all of them. So, or maybe he's the bad guy and he's talked to all the other guys in his little section, and you know when you walk down the hallway at school, if they can trap you off, you're going to get ambushed. And these guys, they don't think for themselves. There's a group like that in Abnormal Results. There's this one guy who's a jerk, and he's got these 2 or 3 little friends that are mostly dumb, and they do whatever he says, and they laugh at his jokes, and they make him feel better. When he's like, I'm the coolest ever, they're like, you're the coolest ever. They're minions. I never thought about it before, but that's what they are. See you, honey. Oh, I need my watch. Thank you. So, what else you got? Your anti-hero is somebody who's like, he could be the hero, but he's also got some stuff about him that he really needs to deal with. This is the perfect example is Han Solo. He's awesome. You want to root for him, but he's kind of a jerk. You know, he doesn't care about people for the most part. He has his own agenda going on. He doesn't want to fight for the Republic. He wants to go get some money and have a nice life and be by himself. In Tangled, it's actually the little Prince Charming guy. He's like, you know, when they're like, I have a dream, la la la. And he's like, I have a dream to be on someplace with lots of money and by myself and, you know, to do my own thing. And the whole story is kind of about, will he become the hero? Or is he going to go off by himself with lots of money and do his own thing? So he's important in the story if he's in the story, but he doesn't have to be in the story. So that's up to you. And then you've got your damsel in distress, which sometimes is literally a damsel in distress. A lot of the older movies, you'll find that's the way the hero movies worked. You've got Errol Flynn, who's Robin Hood, and you have to have Maid Marian. Now, depending on when the movie was made, Maid Marian might be like, oh, save me, save me, save me. That's pretty much all she does. Save me, save me, save me. Until she gets saved, and then she's like, yay! And that's about it. She's there to be pretty, she's there to be helpless, and she's there to get rescued. Now, honestly, in the old Errol Flynn movie, Olivia de Havilland was the Maid Marian, and she got so tired of playing movies like this. That's the reason she went to be in Gone with the Wind, because she was like, I'm sick of just being the damsel in distress who gets rescued by Errol Flynn all the time. So, sometimes it might be a girl who needs to get rescued. But now, as you notice, as things change, if you see a Robin Hood movie from the past, like, 20 years, she's not going to be that way. She's going to be a little more involved. For example, all you do is watch really old movies, and the sword fighting scenes, if there's a girl involved and they're fighting with the girl, there were all these rules of conduct. And the last thing that would ever happen is for a girl to get involved in the rules of conduct. Because it's an honorable thing, and, you know, even though you're fighting to the death, you're going to bow beforehand and do all these weird things, and you're like, what? I hate watching those when the guys are fighting, all the girl does is go, ooh, ah, and she does nothing. I'm like, hit him over the head with a pan, do something, you know, scream, yell, call 911, anything. And she's just there to be rescued, and, you know, so you put that in there if you want, but, sometimes it's something who is literally, who or what is literally helpless. It's a little puppy in a trap. And so you're fighting the big bad guy who put the little puppy in the trap, and the little puppy's going, oh, oh, oh. Okay, that works. Puppy's not going to help. It's just the way it is. Sometimes your damsel in distress is someone who comes alongside you and becomes part of the solution. Tangled is a good representative of that. He's your anti-hero. She's the hero. And so they sort of work together to fight the bad guy. And, you know, it works.
Girl.
Yeah, that's true. Bad, really, really, really old lady. Okay, so in thinking of your story over Christmas, I want you to put some thought into, we've talked about your characters. Now that you can go on your own, you can start this whole process over. You can think about your main character. Maybe it's you. Maybe you. What's on this side? What's on this side? What's in the middle? We've thought about the description. How do you describe this person? How do you describe the setting that they're in? What's going on? What's going to happen? But it's important to understand some of these parts of what's going on. And I actually made you guys your own little flyer with your happy little people on it.
Oh.
Bad guy, good guy. And you may say, well, my story's only going to be 10 pages long, so, you know, I can't do all this. I just do like a scene. No, yes you can.
Oh.
When you go home, I want you to ask your mother, father, whoever it is that runs the computer, to pull up YouTube and look up the short, they call it a short film, Piper, Piper. It's a little, I think it's Pixar. It's a little short story, and I show it to you today, except I can't get on the Wi-Fi. In 4 minutes, with no words, none. There's not one word in the entire short story. It's all about this little sandpiper. And the little sandpiper, when you watch it, you can basically find almost all the things on this whole thing with no words. It's all showing, no telling, even in a movie. So there's this little sandpiper, and it starts out with the setting. You see the sea washing up. Everything's normal. Normal world. La, la, la. And the little pipers, they run up like they do, and then they run back with the waves, okay? Then it shows you our hero, which is this little tiny, brand new sandpiper. Very cute, and he goes, like this, because he wants the world to stay the same as it is. Mother, feed me. Well, the mother's out there, and she decides it's time for the little piper to go get his own food. So she shows him what to do. Mentor first. Has to prove himself. So he thinks, an adventure, okay? So he's like a little hesitant, but he's excited. So he goes running out there, and he figures out how to get food. And it's like, I am successful, I am awesome, this is great. And the wave comes. And all the other pipers knew enough to run away. He doesn't know to run away. So the wave comes, it washes over the poor little thing, and then it washes back, and you see this poor piper with all his hair sticking out going, Now he's disillusioned. What he wanted wasn't what he wanted. He decided what he wants is to be safe. So he runs back to where it's normal and decides, I'm done with this. And the mom tries to get him to come back out. He's like, no. Well, then he hesitantly decides, but he's very scared now. Now he doesn't want to do this. He's just like hesitant, but he's hungry. What does he do? Conflict of interest, okay? Well, he meets a little friend that becomes the good friend, the mentor, kind of, it's this little crab that basically shows him how to burrow under the sand. Now, none of the other pipers do this. This is normal. But he watches him, and he's like, oh. So the next time a wave comes, he sticks his head down, and he burrows in the sand, and the wave goes over and comes back, and now he has access to, like, all the food because he's there. And so not only does he overcome, he actually goes beyond what his normal world, how they overcome. And now he helps his whole group because he's like, hey, watch this, look at this. This whole thing happens with no words in 4 minutes. So you can tell your story and get in everything you need to get in, even if it's just 2 pages long or if it's 50 pages long. And as you will see from your original paper, your homework over Christmas is just to write. I want at least 4 pages by the time you come back. Like I said, it can be in this story continued. It can be in a totally different story that you want to write yourself. But I want at least 4 pages. And I want you to self-edit them, which means I want to see, Lydia, exactly what you did. Lydia apologized to me. She was like, I didn't have a chance. I made edits on it, but I didn't have a chance to redo it. That's exactly what I want. I want you to write your original, and then I want you to go back and mark things, change things, add other things, whatever. I want to see marks that you have gone through and looked at it and read it again and made it as good as you can. I don't want the final draft. I want the messy draft. Just, I have to be able to read your writing. And if I can't read your writing, put it on the computer, print it, and then make the marks on it. That's what I do. I like that. Okay. The finished story by the end of the year, next May, is anywhere from 10 to 100 pages. So if you want to write me a book, write a book. If you want to write just enough to get through with the class, you write me 10 pages, and we're good. As long as it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, character growth, interesting characters in it, and somebody's learning something along the line. Your reader is learning either from what they did do right or from what they did wrong. Hey, we've actually still got some time left. Yay! Okay. Because we do, I'm going to turn this off for you, Anna. See you later. Merry Christmas. Because it's boring watching other people talk when you're not there.